The first punch wasn't meant for him. It was meant to silence her. The crack of it split the cold night air in a downtown Portland parking garage, sharp and ugly, followed by a stifled cry that didn't quite make it out of her throat. The sound bounced off concrete walls and steel beams, swallowed by the hum of distant traffic and the flicker of fluorescent lights overhead. Jason Miller heard it anyway. He had just buckled his 6-year-old daughter, Emma, into the back seat of his aging blue Honda. She was humming softly to herself, clutching the stuffed dolphin he'd won for her at a school carnival 2 weeks ago. It had been a good night. Pizza, extra pepperoni, and a promise that they'd build her science fair volcano the next morning. Then came the cry. At first, Jason froze, not because he was afraid, because he recognized that sound. Fear. The kind that makes your blood run cold. He glanced at Emma through the rearview mirror. Her wide brown eyes met his.
Daddy!
His heart thudded once, hard. "Stay in the car," he said quietly. "Lock the doors. Don't open them for anyone but me, okay?" She nodded, serious in the way only children of single parents learn to be. Jason stepped away from the car and rounded the concrete pillar separating his parking spot from the next row. That's when he saw her. She was backed against a gray SUV, purse spilled open on the oil-stained ground, phone shattered nearby. 2 men loomed over her, one gripping her wrist, the other yanking at her coat. "Please," she was saying, her voice breaking. "Just take it, just go." One of them laughed. Jason didn't think. He moved. "Hey!" His voice echoed through the garage, calm but firm. "Let her go!" Both men turned. Jason looked ordinary. Jeans, worn boots, a flannel jacket zipped halfway up against the November chill. His dark hair was slightly graying at the temples. His face lined not by age but by responsibility. He didn't look like a threat. One of the attackers smirked. "Mind your business." "It is my business," Jason replied evenly. "You're done." The man holding her wrist shoved her aside and stepped toward. "Jason, you got a death wish?" Jason's eyes flicked briefly to the woman. She was shaking, pressed against the SUV, her breath coming in ragged pulls. "Get behind me," he told her. The second attacker lunged first. It happened fast. A wild swing meant to intimidate. Jason ducked. He didn't flinch. Didn't hesitate. He moved with a precision that didn't match his appearance. He caught the man's wrist mid-strike, twisted sharply, and used the attacker's momentum to slam him face first onto the concrete. The crack echoed through the garage. The second man swore and charged. Jason pivoted, stepping into the movement. One solid strike to the ribs, a sharp elbow to the jaw, controlled, efficient. The kind of force that ends a fight without prolonging it. Within seconds, both men were on the ground, groaning, stunned. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 15 seconds. The woman stared at him as if she were trying to process what she'd just seen. Jason stood still, chest rising steadily, eyes scanning for additional threats. His breathing was controlled, measured, not adrenaline. Training. One of the attackers coughed, glaring up at him. "Who the hell are you?" Jason looked down at him, not with anger, but disappointment. "U.S. Navy," he said simply. And for the first time, real fear crossed their faces. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Someone must have called 911. Jason stepped back, giving space, never taking his eyes off the 2 men. The woman's voice trembled. You could have gotten killed." He shook his head. "They were counting on you being alone." He walked over, picked up her purse, and handed it to her gently. "Are you hurt?" She swallowed, shaking her head. I don't think so." Up close, he could see she was in her early 30s. Professional, smartly dressed. A bruise already forming on her cheek where she'd been struck. "You should get checked out anyway," he said. "Shock hides things." She stared at him, eyes glassy. "Why did you help me?" The question caught him off guard. He glanced toward his car. "Because my daughter is watching. Because someone once didn't help my wife. Because no one deserves to be afraid in a parking garage." But he only said, "Because it was the right thing to do." Police cars screeched into the garage moments later, lights painting the concrete walls in red and blue. Officers rushed in, weapons drawn, ordering the attackers to stay down. Jason raised his hands immediately, calm and cooperative. One officer recognized the situation quickly. "Sir, step back. Are you the one who intervened?" "Yes, ma'am." The woman stepped forward, voice still shaky. He saved me. They would have... She couldn't finish. The paramedics arrived next. As the attackers were cuffed and hauled upright, one of them muttered, "Didn't look like Navy." Jason met his gaze steadily. That's the point! Emma's car door suddenly clicked. Jason's head snapped toward the sound. She stepped out despite his instructions, running straight toward him, her small sneakers slapping against concrete. "Daddy!" His entire posture softened instantly. He knelt and caught her in his arms. "You said stay in the car," he whispered, but there was no anger in it. "I was scared," she admitted, burying her face in his shoulder. "But you weren't." He held her tighter. "I was," he said quietly. "That's why I had to move fast." The woman watched the exchange, tears streaming down her face now, not from fear, but from something else. Understanding. Later, as statements were taken, the woman introduced herself. "Rachel Adams." Jason nodded. "Jason Miller." She hesitated. "You didn't just protect me tonight. You protected her too." Jason looked at Emma, who was now sitting on the hood of the car, swinging her legs, watching the flashing lights like it was a parade. "I try," he said. Rachel studied him. "You're not just Navy, are you?" He exhaled slowly. "Former, 10 years. Special operations." Her eyes widened slightly. "My husband served," she said softly. "Army. He didn't make it home." Something shifted between them. Shared understanding. Shared loss. Jason nodded once. "I'm sorry." "I am too," she whispered. There was silence then, heavy but not uncomfortable. "Can I ask you something?" she said after a moment. "Sure. How do you still choose kindness? After everything?" He thought about long nights overseas, about coming home to a folded flag, about Emma asking questions he didn't always know how to answer. He looked at his daughter again. "Because the world already has enough men who hurt people," he said. "She needs to see men who don't." Rachel pressed her hand over her mouth, overcome. The officers finished their paperwork. The attackers were taken away. Before leaving, one of the officers shook Jason's hand. "Appreciate your service. And what you did tonight." Jason nodded politely. "Just being a citizen." But as he walked back to his car, Emma slipped her hand into his. "Daddy!" "Yeah, baby? Were you like a superhero in the Navy?" He smiled faintly. "No, just someone who learned how to stand up when it counts." She thought about that. "I'm glad you're my dad." The words hit harder than any punch ever could. He crouched down so they were eye level. "I'm glad you're my reason." Across the garage, Rachel watched them drive away. She would later tell the story to friends, to coworkers, to her family back in Ohio, about the night she learned that heroes don't wear capes. They wear flannel jackets. They drive old Hondas. They raise daughters alone, and they step forward when everyone else steps back. Months later, Jason received a letter in the mail. Inside was a simple thank you card and a photo. Rachel standing at a community self-defense seminar she had organized in Portland, smiling confidently. At the bottom, she'd written, "You reminded me that strength and kindness can exist in the same person. I hope to pass that on." Jason taped the photo to the fridge, not because he needed recognition, but because Emma would grow up seeing proof that courage echoes, that one moment of selflessness can ripple outward, that humanity isn't loud, it's decisive, it's steady. It's choosing to protect when you could walk away, and somewhere in Portland, 2 men would think, twice before underestimating a quiet father in a flannel jacket. Because seconds matter, character matters, and sometimes the strongest force in a broken world is simply a single dad who refuses to let fear win.